This is something that is sometimes called believing in the tax fairy. It's a belief that if you reduce the revenue that government is taking in, the government doesn't actually take in any less revenue. You reduce the amount that they're getting, but they don't get any less. If that sounds magic, it's because it is. It's called believing in the tax fairy. Actually, in 1980, when Poppy Bush, George H.W. Bush, was running against Ronald Reagan, he did not call it believing in the tax fairy. What he called it was, famously, voodoo economics.
You know, it's amazing what talking heads will say on television for ratings. Why don't we just look at the numbers? Yeah, let's take a look at the numbers. Does raising taxes actually raise revenue, and does lowering taxes actually lower revenue? Well, in order to do that, we'll have to take a look at history. And let's go back to 1980 when Jimmy Carter was president. When I say we, the U.S. government made $517 billion. Then Ronald Reagan came. And what happens when Ronald Reagan came? We had these huge deficits because he cut taxes. So the natural assumption is that we made a lot less than $517 billion. Well, to the contrary. From the first year, Ronald Reagan was making $599 billion, and by the time Ronald Reagan left in 1988, the U.S. government was making $909 billion. That's almost $400 billion more than they were making when Jimmy Carter was president. And it's almost twice as much. I mean, that's a significant increase. I think it's 40% more. But you can do the math. Then George Bush came. And as we all know, George Bush raised taxes. And don't take my word for what kind of taxes he raised. I'm going to refer you to an interview that Tim Dickinson did on Fresh Air with Terry Gross. And I'm going to go to the interview right now, actually, and give you a snippet with Tim Dickinson talking about George Herbert Bush.
George H.W. Bush put country before ideology, and he brokered a tax package that increased taxes on the wealthiest and also increased taxes on luxury items, on jets and sedans and yachts.
Increased taxes on the wealthiest and luxury items. Pretty much what we're talking about today, right? Increasing taxes on the wealthy. Well, let's see how much money that actually raised, right? So let's go back and take a look. So George Herbert Bush came in 1989, and we were at a little under $1 trillion. And when he left, we were a little over $1 trillion. So what happened to all those taxes? I mean, Ronald Reagan brought us up almost 400 billion, and this guy barely hit 100 billion, right? What happened? Where's all the money from raising taxes? Rachel, maybe you want to tell us. What happened with Clinton? Clinton, as you know, in 94, we had Gingrich come in and did the contract with America, and again, cut taxes, did the same thing that Ronald Reagan did. I wonder what happened. I wonder if we made less money, if the government brought in less revenue. We went from 1.2, back to 8, 9? Absolutely not. By 1988, 89, 88 I think is when Gingrich left, we were at 1.7 trillion. Again, that's $400 to $500 billion more, not by raising taxes, by cutting taxes. Then, of course, Bush came in, and in about 2002, he started cutting taxes because the economy wasn't doing so well. And what happened? We had these huge deficits. Why? Because revenue went down? No. Revenue didn't go down. Revenue went up. And by 2008, we were making almost over $2.5 trillion. That's almost $800 billion more than we were making when he first started, right? Actually, not when he first started, but from the bottom. I think it's about $500 billion more than when he first started. We're gonna keep it honest here. Well, Rachel, there you have it. You are wrong on this issue, and you really shouldn't have made fun of those people because they were right and you were wrong.